episode 29 of This and That and What a Fuck, and this is an edition that has got some dangers in for me, so you must forgive me. There's a lot of words that I'm going to skip or change, and you must pause the video and read the things more in detail if you want to. And there's a hilarious what a fuck at the end. Let's go. Two Baltic nations reduce China ties. Latvia and Estonia have withdrawn from the 16+1 cooperation group between China and Eastern Central European countries. The 16+1 format has been around since 2012 to promote joint infrastructure and development projects between Beijing and European states. The US State Department spokesman welcomed the decision. We respect and support Estonia and Latvia's sovereign decision to no longer participate in the 16+1 initiative. Now, well, what can I say about this? The Latvian and Lithuania guys, seems to me, they took some steroids and they think that they are world powers lately. And this cooperation movement from which they have withdrawn can only be to the detriment of the citizens of those two countries. But take note, the US welcomes it. The US will always welcome anything that Europe do to screw themselves. And some more from China. Beijing's decision to drastically limit diplomatic contacts with the United States following Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, including cutting off crisis channels the Biden administration has worked hard to create, is an increasingly clear sign that the two countries' relationship has reached a new low. And they were warned not to do it, but we know the US, they don't listen, they only instruct. And then there's this. China overtakes US in scientific research output. China has overtaken the United States in both scientific research output and high-impact studies, according to a report published by Japan's National Institute of Science and Technology. Between 2018 and 2020, China published a yearly average of 407,000 scientific papers, accounting for 23.4% of the world's research output. The US published 293,000 papers during the same period. China's research comprised 27.2% of the world's top 1% most frequently cited papers, eclipsing the US 24.9%. And what can you expect with all that alphabet shit that's going on in the US schools? And I've listened to an article where it was pointed out in what dire straits the American schools find themselves. Basically in all the states, there are states that are 20, 30, 40% short on qualified teachers. And this is the thing, these political race, they have acquired the ability to interfere in everything. And for the past 20 years or so, one of the main targets of the globalists was to break down education. And the American education system is in shambles. South Africa's education system has successfully been dismantled. And look there at China. I also read an article in which they stated how many children in China studies science and engineering. It was absolutely astounding. But you hear stories of Chinese children in grade 1, grade 2, grade 3 doing extremely complicated mathematics, and at the same time in the American schools they teach the children that there's no such thing as genders. This is the results. And now we come to a dangerous shape for me as a producer. You look at this image. This was a guy that tracked the GP down that gave his family member snake poison, which killed that member. As people start dying off from these things, expect to see more happening. And then we get to this. This is in South America. Newly elected president of Costa Rica rescinds the jab mandate. As of today, any action taken against anyone who does not want the jab is an action that is against the law. Well, and it's beginning to pick up speed. And then there's this, Taiwan. More deaths from the poison than from the pestilence. What did you expect? And then there's this, which is actually disturbing. This is from Maria Zakharova. She is the spokeswoman for Lavrov, the Foreign Affairs Minister of Russia. And her Twitter account was suspended for 7 days. And the suspension was apparently because she tweeted something about the pestilence. The harsh measures came in response to our tweet quoting the Russian Defense Ministry, which stated that the United States Agency for International Development could have been involved in the, and you must read that yourself. It is doubtful that Twitter has sufficient expertise to question the findings of the Defense Ministry that are based on reviewing documents and the latest data. Clearly, this is yet another awkward attempt to shut our mouths. This is not the first time that we've been subjected to such punishment. Some of our tweets have been blocked in the past, but suspending the official account of the foreign ministry of a major country, even if for a week, is beyond good and evil. And there it is again. This is how we are deprived from the truth. And then there's this. This could actually have been a what a fuck. After 12 days from the first shot of the poison, you are 100% effective against hospitalization and death. And where the fuck did she get that information from? Where is the scientific basis for making a claim like that? Then there's this one. Dr. Fauci has known for 15 years that thing, it's even milder derivative, HCQ, will not only treat a current case of the pestilence, therapeutic, but prevent future cases, prophylactic. I am stunned. This comes out now. Trump said it right at the start, before they bulldozed him onto the snake poison wagon. And then there's this sad one. Dominique Oscar, a talented 19-year-old Belfast boxer, has passed away suddenly. No explanation has been provided at the time of print of the cause of death. And you can make your own deductions from that. And then there was an article, Bombshell study. Those poisoned are 5 times more contagious than those that were not. Published in the prestigious New England Journal of Medicine. A study led by Massachusetts-based physician-scientist leads to this disturbing revelation. And then there's this tweet that followed on that. So do the poisoned lose their jobs now since they are 5 times more contagious? Do airline healthcare workers, military teachers get their jobs back? Aren't they now more attractive to hire? All valid questions. And then there's more. CMO Tony Hollowan confirms that there are 0 unjabbed people in hospital or in intensive care with the pestilence. All of the people in hospital or intensive care are jabbed. Well, this is embarrassing. It looks like you are safer when you're a pureblood. And we all expected that, knew that, and nobody wanted to listen. And then we go to the Donbass. Shots of the captured position of the armed forces of the Ukraine in Piski. Fleeing the Ukrainian Nazis left a lot of weapons, including the Javelin anti-tank complex and the MG42 machine gun. And there is so many articles on the channels about the amounts of weapons that those soldiers are leaving behind as they vacate their positions. And then there's some good news from Mariupol. Mariupol theatre is being restored, and there is a nice picture of how, and that theatre was the subject of one of the great Donbass hoaxes. And then we get to this. This is quite interesting. Ukrainian prisoners of war belonging to the units of the Naval Infantry, National Guard, Air Assault and Ground Forces chose to stay in the territory controlled by Russia because of their reluctance to fight and fear of being sent to the front lines again. Ukrainian POWs reluctant to be exchanged. So, more truth coming out. But the press will not promote this. And then we go to Europe. Thousands of Muslims descended on Athens to celebrate the Islamic festival of Ashura. This drew condemnation from Greeks, including Andreas Monsoroulas, a journalist who described the scene as a siege and a show of force. And look at that picture. And this is what lots of people warned the Europeans about when they allowed that tsunami of migrants into their countries. And Viktor Orban, and a guy from Poland, has been criticized severely because they rejected the immigrants and refused to take any in. And as Orban said at CPAC, it is not a racist thing, it's a cultural thing. And he is protecting the Hungarian people. But Europe is going to pay for this little mishap. And then there's something about the farmers. There was a tweet, and it contained the following. Stalin called the farmers the enemies of the people. By expropriating them, the state took control of food production. Then 7 million Russians were starved to death. Now, 100 years later, the World Economic Forum is opening the war on farmers. And that is so important. And then this girl says, why do this still happen? My mom is a farmer, a successful one. I am not. I can never take over her job and make a success or even just keep up with what she's currently doing. Everything will turn into a disaster if I tried. Well, girl, everything will turn into a disaster if we don't stop these fuckers. And then here's another little tidbit. Europe's space agency turns to SpaceX after losing Russian rockets. The European Space Agency has begun preliminary negotiations with SpaceX, seeking to use its launchers after access to Russian Soyuz rockets was blocked. And who do you have to thank? Ursula von der Crazy and her crazy cabal sitting in Brussels and that are being instructed by the warmongers sitting in the shithouse. And then there's this. The European Union has been increasing exports of goods to Russia for the second month in a row. The corresponding data is provided by Eurostat. European exports for June amounted to almost 4.5 billion, 18% more than in May. The main products are industrial equipment, medicines, plastics and cosmetics. The largest exporters from Europe to Russia were Germany and Italy. It's noteworthy that the leaders in export growth are Poland and Baltic countries. And the Baltic countries, those three sitting there at the top on the left, they are extremely cocky and they are forever poking the bear. I wonder, but I find it amusing that the exports is climbing without a word being said of sanctions or anything. And this is just a reminder, I did a skidmark on this from Borrell. We must explain to our citizens that this is not someone else's war, the diplomat said in an interview published by the newspaper El Pai on Thursday. The public must be willing to pay the price of supporting Ukraine and for preserving the unity of the EU. We are at war. These things are not free, he added, acknowledging that the cost should be distributed equitably. We are at war. Who the fuck is these we? Guys, If the Europeans don't get rid of that political race, they are going to perish. And then there is this tweet. And I have a funny idea that the translation is not so lekker. That's why I kept the original language as well. I'm worried about the collateral damage. NATO does not equal population. Medvedev's idea of naturalization would be an opportunity, but it would have to be specific. I think a third of East Germany has had enough. And this is part of a long thread about people that are seriously considering it to take Russian citizenship. People in the EU. I think we're going to see a lot of that. I have said in a previous Skidmark of me that I did, I think it was in April, where I talked about the potential that Russia may find themselves in a position that there will be a lot of economic migrants trying to get into Russia. I looked at a chat of a girl that has got a channel, and she lives in Poland, and she had some interesting numbers today about the price of diesel and petrol in Russia compared to what they are paying in Poland. And it is absolutely shocking. Something like 4 or 5 times more expensive in Poland than in Russia. But who do we have to thank? Ursula von der Crazy and her cabal. And then there's this. Spain had enough. They're pushing the invaders back to where they came. And it was a video. And that Spanish security forces were throwing those people back into the sea. I've got an idea that this might be in that Spanish enclave in North Africa, where the police, about 2 weeks ago, killed about 300 migrants that stormed the fence and broke the fence down and swarmed into the enclave. But they were throwing, these guys were jumping off the rocks into the sea. But maybe too little too late. And then we get this. Japan rejects the use of a central bank digital currency. Zero financial privacy with it. It's important to note that outside of central bankers and politicians who see the benefits in being part of that. And this is a WEF plan. Now Japan has rejected it. And then we get to this. And this must make those cretins sitting in a shithouse in Washington extremely uncomfortable. India to become Asia's fastest growing economy. A young workforce, business investment and economy boosting reforms are the main contributors to the projected growth, which will see the country add 28% and 22% to regional and global growth according to experts. That was inevitable. These countries are developing and is growing, and the West is busy dying. And instead of changing their attitude and make peace with the world and live as a good neighbor, they keep on stirring the shit. And then this is just a curiosity. This person posted this and said, when was skin cancer invented? Photo from 1970. No obese people, no mobile phones, no sunglasses, no skin cancer because they didn't wear sunscreen. No lines or chemtrails in the sky. Look at that image and think about it. I was a young guy in the 70s. I was on beaches like that. There were no fat people. That was for sure. But in any case, read it, think about it. And then it's a moment for the what the fuck. And this is absolutely hilarious. Bumped for burgling. Hapless thieves break into the home of America's most prolific gay sex predator. Two men attempt theft in a gay's house, and then 2 professional thieves in the US broke into a Florida man's house to rob. Unfortunately, they picked the wrong house as the owner was a giant gay rapist. The notorious gay sex predator tied the 2 men, aged 54 and 36, and raped them for 5 days. A neighbor heard the men's cries and called the police. The consequences left the thieves physically and emotionally damaged. I can just imagine. But try and picture this for yourself. This is karma. But, poor guys, I don't think they're gonna try this shit again. So, on that note, like, share, and subscribe. I need that support, please. Have a nice evening.